Hey guys, it's Mulligan, and welcome to episode 13 of Eternal Errors. For those new, this is a series where we analyze my mistakes and I attempt to educate others on what the correct decision is in a given situation. The goal is for players to learn from my mistakes so they can make the right choices instead. So this week, I'll be showcasing a bit of a brew I've started to work on, that being Justice Primal Shadow Control. I'm still in the very early stages of playing the deck, and I've seen others try it off and on, but I've already noticed things in my gameplay that need to be cleaned up. These examples I feel are not just lessons to be learned for this deck, but for control decks in general. Let's get into it. The first game we're going to be looking at is against Sunnyvale, who's on an Elysian mid-range variant. On this turn, I had two lines of play I could take. I could either tap out to play Vara and bring back Felon Bloodcaster, or use Slay on a target and Withering Witch the rest of the board, hoping to top deck a Black Sky Harbinger or a Lightning Storm. After some time, I end up going with the latter because I felt the former play was weak to Permafrost. In hindsight, I think I should have just played Vara. There was no reason to Slay the Scaly Gruin, and Withering Witch hoping to top deck another Harbinger or Lightning Storm was pretty risky. The Slay Witch line is also weak to Permafrost anyway. It turned out not to matter since I wouldn't get another turn, but despite that, Vara bringing back Bloodcaster effectively did the same thing that Witch and Slay did, which was prevent lethal. And I would get to save Slay for something bigger had I lived, which is what you should do in general. Slay plus Witch would be correct if I had nothing else to play. The next game we'll be taking a look at is against the Doubleman, and this was a lesson in not recognizing what my opponent was playing until it was too late. I didn't pick up on the deck my opponent was playing until about this point. I waited after the first Martial Ironthorn came down to get more value with Withering Witch and Lightning Storm. And I did end up getting more value when my opponent played a Minotaur Ambassador into another Martial Ironthorn. The problem with that is leaving the first Ironthorn up another turn gave my opponent enough to ramp into this deck's top end cards, a New Tomorrow and Ada the Huru. And that's when I realized that this was Loco Pojo's deck, Tomorrow Never Die. In this case, it was a big Great Parliament followed up by Ada the Huru that locked me out of the game. Had I just cleared the first Ironthorn with Witch Lightning Storm, that would have been 4 additional power that my opponent wouldn't have access to, which is equal to an extra 4/4 Owl token from Great Parliament, and also possibly prevents Ada the Huru from being played, depending on my opponent's hand. This is, of course, assuming the game played out in the exact same way. Granted, the deck is rare on ladder, but it's a good lesson in having a firm grasp on the metagame, which is necessary when playing any control deck. Finally, we have a game against PDC, and we need to freeze it right here. This is possibly a lesson in me not living up to my namesake and also not knowing the contents of my deck. I saw 2 Harbingers in my opening hand with only 2 Seat of Order for power and decided to toss the hand to try and get something better. It might look innocent to some, but I really should have reconsidered this hand because it also had 2 Permafrost in it. The only single target removal I ran in this list were 4 Permafrost and 3 Slay. Everything else was board clear as far as removal goes. Also, despite not having the influence to play it initially, Felon Bloodcaster is also a consideration as a potential early game blocker, and I ran more shadow sources than any other power source in this list, so it was definitely possible I could still play Bloodcaster on turn 3. Needless to say, I end up with a worse hand. My opponent ends up being on Skycrag aggro. They curve out, and I get destroyed. And knowing what is in your deck and the chances of drawing what you need is key for any deck you play. But I think it's especially important when playing control decks since it's usually these type of decks that punish you the most when you mess up. That's it for this episode of Eternal Errors. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave a like if you liked the video, And as always, if you guys would have handled any situation shown today differently, particularly on those last two examples, I'm very curious on those. Or if you have any ideas for this series, let me know in the comment section below. Feedback is always appreciated. For those new, if you liked what you saw, feel free to check out my previous episodes in this series by clicking the link on your screen. And also subscribe if you don't want to miss future episodes or just general eternal content that I put up in the future. Thanks again for taking time out of your day to watch this, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.